Welcome to tonight's breaking episode. We are going to discuss the shocking, despicable recent allegations that have just come forward towards not only WWE Hall of Fame legend, but legend of so many other promotions. Today we're going to be talking about the allegations of Ric Flair that have been recently unveiled through Dark Side of the Ring, although a lot of original era fans argue that these allegations have been out for years. So we're going to get into all that tonight. Now, for new fans, who might not be aware of the history, we're going to look at this list I've compiled here of Flair's prior history with both police, the legal system, and even fans. So here we go. We're going to get into it. He had a road rage charge. Accordingly, grabbed a motorist by the neck, dented the SUV, and then Flair kicked the side of it. Police did not include details of what led to the altercation, but the incident was then later mocked on that WWE programming. We see there was a boyfriend brawl in 2008. Flair's daughter, the daughter now who wrestles under the WWE under the name Charlotte Flair, was arrested after police said she kicked a police officer after a fight between Flair and the boyfriend. Now, I can understand that as the whole concept of, the aged lion, being challenged. Flair was also involved in odd airport behavior. Some say that Flair was detained by the police after he was acting strange, loud, and obnoxious. Now, we're going to get into the more gruesome allegations here now. Now, as we mentioned before, a lot of these legends are just from a different time when, it was normal to flaunt the sexuality openly, and Ric Flair is no stranger to that. I've talked about it openly multiple times, in fact, he said it himself. When he goes out, it's either going to be in that ring or on top of a wild woman. So we're going to have to wait and see what come of these massive allegations, but they are sure to shake the industry and Flair himself. So we're going to look at these allegations here. We're going to start with a very troubling, good God, story that original ECW superstar Tommy Dreamer was discussing, how Ric Flair would essentially walk around nude in his trademark robe, swinging the private parts around. I mean, good God. When I heard that, not only that, the whole episode of Dark Side of the Ring made me sick. Truly made me sick. But Tommy Dreamer was essentially passing this off as something that the boys wanted to see, that they got entertainment out of it. But, another wrestling legend Shane Douglas said, it wasn't so fun, when Flair would be, half drunk, running around a hotel room, half nude, exposed, where there could be children present. It's just absolutely sickening. And, Flair, he was in that zone. They talked about it. There was open bar. These guys were essentially over international waters when this alleged assault took place. So, it's almost seemingly like some of these men went to that primal instinct, especially Flair, who's had issues with the sexuality. And he's no stranger to flaunting that sexuality openly, as we've seen recently, for God's sake. He was just only recently exposed for performing a lewd act on a woman in public. I think it's very shocking that, we've all heard the stories. The way Tommy Dreamer tried to frame this whole thing was essentially like, the Rolling Stones or Jim Morrison taking the private parts out. And it was nothing like that. Flair openly, aggressively made himself known to this woman that he wanted to be satisfied in that biological way. I mean, Tommy Dreamer tried to say it was a joke, and a lot of fans are really hot about that. There's been tons of stories of these stars, running around showing the private parts. But to me, it just seems that they get in this zone and they just think they're untouchable and they can do these acts and not be accountable for it. But, legends like Flair now are learning this the hard way, that, you can't do this. And, and what's shocking to me was at the time they were saying he was almost a 50-year-old man running around half nude. It has me questioning, whether to throw all my merchandise in the damn trash, after learning how these men act. Not only towards women, but towards, themselves and other stars. And I think that that now is the time. Flair is aged now. But as we seen with that major star Bill Cosby, that doesn't matter. And Flair is going to have a lot to answer for coming forward in the next couple weeks, months, after these groundbreaking claims. So until then, I'll leave you with that. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to cover, feel free to mention it in the comments. Thank you.